The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Robert Tan. Catch up with us on Business Brief. Asian shares are mostly lower on Tuesday as they trade in a narrow range. This comes after U.S. markets were closed Monday for a Memorial Day holiday. Japan's Nikkei 225 and Indonesia's Jakarta Composite Index are both flat with a downward bias, while Australia's ASX 200 rose 0.41%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng dipped 0.10%, and South Korea's Kospi saw a sharper decline of 0.62%. India's Nifty posted a more significant loss of 0.87%, and Taiwan's TAIEX dropped 0.97%. In the currency market, the U.S. dollar strengthened against several major Asian currencies. It rose 0.32% against the Japanese yen, while the dollar is flat with a slight uptick against Hong Kong dollar and South Korean won. The dollar also gained 0.19% against the Singapore dollar. A more notable gain was seen against the Thai baht, with the pair up 0.44%. In contrast, the Australian dollar weakened, with the pair falling 0.37%. Key commodities and cryptocurrencies saw mostly downward movement. Gold prices declined more than 1%, while oil markets were mixed. West Texas Intermediate crude fell 0.65%, and Brent crude slipped 0.49%. Dubai crude is meanwhile flat with a slight upward bias. And in the crypto market, Bitcoin dropped 0.41%, and Ethereum dipped 0.23%. The Federation of Free Farmers, or FFF, is urging President Bongbong Marcos to include the Departments of Agriculture, Agrarian Reform, and Labor and Employment in his cabinet revamp. The FFF says the said agencies have been too soft on long-running issues like unfair crop pricing, unresolved land disputes, and stagnant wages. They want a direct line to Malacanang through a grassroots advisory council similar to the private sector advisory council composed of business tycoons. The Philippine garments industry can continue to survive if its toughest competitors in ASEAN are slapped with higher tariffs by the United States. At a forum, Marites Hoxon Agoncillo, executive director of the Confederation of Wearable Exporters of the Philippines, says that if Cambodia and Vietnam face tariffs slightly higher than 70%, the industry will be in a better position. She explains that prior to Washington's announcement of the additional tariff, the Philippine garments industry was already in trouble. Hoxon Agoncillo adds the Philippines is already paying duties and taxes since the country is not enjoying any preference status compared to the electronics sector. Meanwhile, shares of the International Container Terminal Services Incorporated, or ICTSI, declined last week. ICTSI shares closed at 404 pesos apiece on Friday. This is 1.5% lower from 410 pesos on May 16. However, year-to-date, the listed port operator gained 4.7%. Toby Alan Arce, head of sales trading at Global Link Securities and Stocks Incorporated, attributes ICTSI's weekly movement to the global uncertainties, sector-specific headwinds, and profit-taking. The Philippine Economic Zone Authority, or PEZA, cracks the billion-peso dividend mark again. This is the second straight year that the government-operated and controlled corporation remitted over 1 billion pesos to the national government. With just over 600 staff, PEZA's surge reflects its aggressive investment drive and fiscal discipline. Investment approvals are up for the third year in a row, reversing the pandemic downturn. Its gains reflect efforts to simplify procedures, adopt digital tools in response to President Bongbong Marcos' early call to elevate special economic zones as engines of national development. PEZA even earned praise from the U.S. State Department as a model of transparency and efficiency. The Securities and Exchange Commission flags 2 online lenders for alleged violations. The agency's financing and lending companies and valuation department issued a cease and desist order against Hupan Lending Technology Incorporated for operating an unrecorded lending platform, Magic Peso. The SEC Finland orders the company to stop the operations of Magic Peso and its declared online lending platforms such as CashMe, Suki Loan, Pesopoly, and Loan Tayo. The SEC Fin lead also revoked the lending license of Hyphen Lending Incorporated for failing to disclose We Will Tech Corporation as one of its third-party service providers. And authorities in Negros Oriental are exploring ways to solve the ongoing logistics challenges triggered by the load limit at the San Juanico Bridge. The 2.16-kilometer bridge connects the islands of Leyte and Samar. Stakeholders from the private sector plan to put up one or more additional ports in other parts of the province. There's been a surge of cargo trucks passing through the province. These trucks were diverted from the bridge. Vehicles with a gross tonnage of more than 3 tons are not allowed to pass the San Juanico due to its state of deterioration. On Monday, Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon, together with local officials of Tacloban and Samar, visited the Amandayehan port in Basi to discuss viable route alternatives for the continuous delivery of goods. They also visited the port of Tacloban. The rehabilitation of the San Juanico Bridge is expected to take 2 to 3 years. Meanwhile, the Philippine economy is poised for a stronger second half in 2025, driven by easing inflation and interest rate cuts, according to BDO Chief Investment Officer Fritz Ocampo. In an interview with Bilyonaryo News Channel's Business 360, Ocampo said he forecasts GDP growth to rise slightly to 5.6 to 5.8% in the second quarter from 5.4% in the first quarter. While they forecast full-year growth at 5.9%, which falls short of the government's 6 to 8% target, Ocampo expects the Philippines to remain as one of the fastest-growing economies in Asia-Pacific. He also welcomed the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas' plan to set a fixed 2% inflation target.
Giving an exact number gives more clarity to the market on where the Monetary Board wants the inflation trend to move towards. This is in line with what developed markets are already doing, like the United States and the EU. And it would allow the business community to really plan for the long term.
We're taking a short break. The biggest business stories from around the country are up next. You're watching Business Brief. Back on Business Brief, from smart meters to solar energy, Meralco maps out a decade of innovation following its strongest financial year. More details with Sujin Kim in Pasig City. Go ahead, Sujin.
Robert, 2024 marked a banner year for Meralco, delivering record-breaking performance across its core business segments and subsidiaries. Consolidated core net income surged to an all-time high of 45.1 billion pesos, fueled by strong energy demand, customer expansion, and efficient operations. Energy sales rose by 6.4%, reaching 54,000 gigawatt-hours, driven by higher temperatures, elevated consumption, and broad economic activity. The company reached a major milestone with the connection of its 8 millionth customer, including 250,000 new connections in 2024 alone. To bolster system reliability and future-proof its network, Meralco invested over 24 billion pesos to expand and modernize its distribution infrastructure. Preparations for a massive smart metering rollout is also underway. Meralco targets 11 million smart meters over the next 10 years to enable consumers to monitor and manage consumption in real time. During the annual meeting, investors raised questions on the potential impact of a proposed 12% government electricity subsidy and tax exemption for the poorest households. Currently, taxes account for over 10% of the total electricity bill, amounts collected by Meralco and remitted to government agencies and power producers. If enacted, this could result in lower household expenses and higher disposable income, while also reducing energy costs for businesses. However, Chief Financial Officer Betty C. Yap notes potential macroeconomic and fiscal trade-offs, emphasizing the need to review the full details of the proposed law before assessing its long-term effects. Meanwhile, the Terra Solar project is set to provide clean electricity for 2.4 million households, while offsetting 4.3 million tons of carbon emissions annually beginning 2026. And those are latest updates from Pasig City. Back to you, Robert.
Thank you for that report, Sujin Kim. Meanwhile, the European Union has yet to reach a trade deal with Washington that will be mutually beneficial for both sides. The EU is pushing for both sides to have zero tariffs on industrial goods, and the group buying more soybeans, arms, and liquefied natural gas from the U.S. It could also buy more hormone-free beef from the U.S., similar to the trade deal struck by the UK with U.S. earlier this month. Washington, for its part, has sent Brussels a list of demands, from the easing of food safety standards to relaxing environmental and chemical rules. U.S. President Donald Trump agreed to postpone to June 9th the 50% tariffs on EU imports after a phone conversation with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Hong Kong authorities say they're willing to accept international students who will be affected by U.S. President Donald Trump's ban on Harvard University enrolling foreigners. The ban, which is effective for the school year 2025 to 2026, comes as Trump accuses Harvard of fostering anti-Semitism. The territory's Education Bureau has contacted the Harvard Club of Hong Kong to offer support for students affected by the ban.
The Hong Kong SAR government, together with the 8 UGC subsidized universities, will do all our best to facilitate and assist any students who suffered from this discriminated and unfair treatment, so that they will find a way to study in Hong Kong. So I want this message to go out to any students who face discriminated and unfair treatment in the US, so that they know that Hong Kong's doors are wide open to them to come to study in the universities of Hong Kong.
The former British colony has 5 universities in the top 100 of the Times Higher Education World University ranking. Tesla's April sales in Europe dropped 49% year-on-year despite a 28% rise in electric vehicle demand. The Model Y upgrade fails to reverse the decline for a 4th straight month, with total market share down nearly half of last year's 1.3%. This may be a reflection of the shift away from the brand as a protest against Tesla owner Elon Musk's political views. April sales in the European Union, Britain, and the European Free Trade Association fell to 1.07 million cars, following a 2.8% growth a month before. France and Vietnam signed several agreements, including the purchase of 20 Airbus planes. France President Emmanuel Macron is making his first formal visit to Vietnam, the first by a French president in nearly a decade. Other deals include nuclear energy cooperation and Sanofi vaccines. Vietnam is under pressure from Washington to buy more American goods. It has made pledges in trade talks to avert 46% tariffs that could impair its growth. Macron also reiterated France's support of freedom of navigation. Vietnam often clashes with Beijing over contested boundaries in the South China Sea. Still on the French leader, Macron is playing down what appears to be an embarrassing moment as he and his wife, Brigitte, arrived in Vietnam on Sunday. Before Macron disembarked from his plane, someone shoved him in the face. That someone later turned out to be the missus. On Monday, Macron described the incident as nothing but a moment of closeness. The couple has been married since 2007. Tragedy strikes a parade celebrating Liverpool's Premier League title victory. CNN reports nearly 50 people were injured after a car plowed into a crowd of fans. 2 of the victims, a child and an adult, are in a serious condition. A 53-year-old British man was arrested.
What I can tell you is that we believe this to be an isolated incident, and we are not currently looking for anyone else in relation to it. The incident is not being treated as terrorism.
Mexican teachers hold a protest at the capital They're demanding that a 2007 law be repealed as this worsened their retirement conditions by increasing the legal retirement age from 58 to 65. They also want to repeal the education reform approved in 2019 by the current president's protege, then President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. But President Claudia Sheinbaum said her government is in no condition to meet their demands. We're taking a short break. Business Brief will be right back.
Good morning, everyone!
Let's begin your morning with these people that gives you the hottest information.
I'm Pablo de Rosario. Let's get you up to speed with some news that you could use right now.
Rise and shine, beautiful people. I'm Ann Assis Carillo.
And I'm Monique Tuzon. Your mornings are always more fun with us.
With excitement,
It was amazing.
positivity,
Everything is so beautifully made here.
and fun to start your day.
Only here on...
It's a beautiful day!
Ang bawat issue, mas matagal nang tatalakayin.
At ang bawat anggulo, mas masusing susuriin.
Dahil ang bawat balita, siguradong may agenda. Ako po, si Willard Cheng, at makakasama na ni Corina Sanchez Rojas at Pinky Webb na maghahatid ng mga balitang dapat niyong malaman.
6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. na ang agenda.
Dito lang sa Bilyonaryo News Channel.
State-run National Power Corporation is seeking the approval of the Energy Regulatory Commission to recover 7.5 billion pesos in deferred fuel costs incurred in 2023. This is for supplying electricity to off-grid areas. NPC wants to recover deferred accounting adjustments for fuel expenses at an average rate of 6 pesos 35 centavos per kilowatt hour over a 2-year period under its application for the 25th generation rate adjustment mechanism. The company's application covers the billing period from January to December 2023. Philippine shares fall for the second straight day of the week. The PSE index ended lower by nearly 0.1% to close at 63.84, finishing the day as the 9th worst performer in Asia. The day's sectoral indices ended mixed, with mining and oil falling the most at more than 1%, while services rise the most at 0.3%. But decliners outpace advancers 106 to 90. Total value turnover reached 5.1 billion pesos. More than half of the day's most active stocks ended in the red, with SM Investments falling the most at more than 1%. Meanwhile, at the foreign exchange market, the peso is currently trading at 55.34 against the greenback, strengthening from previous close of 55.42. And that's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Robert Tan. Join us again tomorrow as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business, only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. See you then.